Hey there, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Just a quick prequel to the segment you're going to listen to or watch now. I've recorded this 3 weeks ago, and there are a couple of things that I refer to in there that probably deserve a bit of expanding on beforehand. So, firstly, I refer to the Japanese yen running at levels that haven't been this low for a good few years, at a 7-year low against the US dollar and a bunch of other currencies. Well, this trend has continued since recording in the past 2 weeks, and it's important to note that while it still is at similar levels to where it was against the euro and the Australian dollar, it's gotten far more pronounced when comparing the yen to the US dollar. It's now running at a 24-year low against that particular currency, and even more so when comparing the yen to the Singapore dollar, where it's now at a historical peak, meaning your Singapore dollars are now buying more yens than they ever have, period, in history. So just wanted to provide an update on that. Secondly, and far more importantly, I refer in the video to former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and his economic policies, nicknamed Abenomics. 2 weeks after recording this video, we've sadly received the news that Abe-san has been assassinated. He was shot at close range while giving a speech in Nara City, here in Japan. This is obviously shocking news, regardless of what you might think about Abe-san's political career, his worldviews, policies, opinions. The man clearly cared for and did what he thought was best for his country, and he should never have suffered and paid this ultimate price for his life's work. It's, of course, horrible and completely unacceptable to see this level of violence, any level of violence against anyone, but especially fatal violence acted against anyone. But again, especially against a public figure, and simply because of disagreeing with their opinions or actions on the public stage. This is, of course, just an excuse. Anyone partaking in such an act is clearly suffering from far more severe mental issues, and anything else is just an excuse. But it would be extremely insensitive of me to simply post this video as is without mentioning this horrible event, which sadly is probably going to have far-reaching implications for Japan's political and social framework than we're aware of at this point in time, only a week or so after the shocking event itself. So thank you for tuning in and listening to this short intro, and now for the video itself. All right, so thanks for tuning in to listen to or watch, as the case may be, our very first Japan Business Podcast episode video. Super stoked to kick this one off. Probably the most excited I've been in over a decade, when Chikako, my partner, and I started our first company. Now, if this is the first time you see my face or hear my voice, let me give you a short intro on who I am. So my name is Ziv Nakajima-Magen. I was born and bred in Israel, migrated to Australia in my late 20s, and then sort of married into Japan a few years later. Been coming and going to Japan since the early 2000s, and then moved here on a more permanent basis in 2013, which is about 9 years ago as of the time of this recording. Now, until that time, I've mainly been working as an IT project manager in various capacities, so either corporate or small, medium businesses, depending on where in the world I was living at the time. And then in 2011, Chikako and I co-founded and have been running ever since a real estate consultancy and buyer's advocacy firm here in Japan. So over the years, we've been assisting our clients in purchasing, managing, selling various real estate property holdings in Japan. And our clients have always been foreigners, so non-Japanese, either resident here in Japan or ones living overseas. And while we regularly do help people purchase holiday homes and land for building their home on and so forth, our main expertise has always been investment properties. And the reason for that is mainly because this is where I personally feel most at home. So I love running numbers, efficiently operating business and business projects. I love Excel sheets, problem solving, fine-tuning financials, and just coming up with creative ways to maximize profits. And I absolutely love doing that on behalf of clients. So I'm 100% in it for the kicks that I get from providing that outstanding kind of service and being recognized as an expert in my field, so very vain. But really, I just thrive in this environment. It's really what I'm best at. It rocks my boat, if you will. I originally labeled myself an IT geek turned property geek. But I think as the years go by, I've kind of come to recognize that what I really am is a business geek. I just love doing business. Not necessarily the salesy side of business, because I really hate sales pitches and cold calls and cold emails and convincing people to do anything that they might not necessarily be interested in doing. I just really love the brainstorming, operating, nitty-gritty kind of side of business that comes with actually getting things done and generating some awesome results. So that's who I am. That's what I've been doing and what I am still doing. So NTI, or Nippon Tradings International, our first company, is most definitely alive and kicking. In fact, 2020, 2021, and now 2022, from the looks of things, have all been our best years progressively to date. And that seems to only be getting better and better. There's a lot of interest in Japan, and it's been increasing steadily. So first, due to the 2020 Olympics and the hype that that's generated, or even before that, due to Abenomics, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's economic policies, which for better and worse have at least put the word out there that Japan is open for business. And then after the pandemic started, people couldn't get into the country for a long while, and absence does make the heart go fonder. I hear that Japan's now topped the BBC's list of countries that people want to go to as soon as the borders open. And also the Japanese yen, which is now the weakest it's been in 6 or 7 years' time against most major currencies, is definitely bringing in a lot of investors and their capital with them. So yeah, NTI is doing well, no complaints whatsoever. We're expanding, we're loving it. But along the way, during this last decade that we've been in business, I regularly get asked by both existing and potential clients if it's possible to A, increase profits beyond the kind of mid-single digit yield that property investment tends to generate, and B, if they can actually use their investments to also move to Japan, meaning to get a long-term visa and actually live here. And while property investment can definitely help with that in a non-direct kind of way, you can set up a company, hire local staff, generate enough income to apply for, and then continuously renew a business manager visa. But there are better ways to do that, and better businesses that you can run if that's your goal, if you want to generate that higher income, or if you want to move here. So for example, you could purchase $500,000 or $1 million asset, or a bunch of assets that would generate that kind of annual income that's required to maintain that visa. But again, because we're talking mid-single digits, 4, 5, 6% annual yield, you do need to buy a pretty expensive asset to get there. And you could potentially increase that yield even with cheaper assets by leasing out your properties as short-term rentals, Airbnb type residences, and that can tweak and increase your returns. But then you're essentially, again, running a hospitality business. At that point, it's not longer really a passive investment. So I've been thinking to myself, if one is already setting up a local company and hiring staff and running a business, which means they're being more hands-on, they're making more decisions on a regular basis, they're checking on, they're monitoring, they're fine-tuning performance and so forth, it doesn't really have to be a property-related business, does it? It could be really any kind of business. Now, setting up and running a business in a foreign country is a bit risky, though. So you'd want to know your industry really, really well. You'd want to know your local clientele, local marketing strategies, how does hiring and staffing work, operations, all of that you need to know really, really well. There's a lot that goes on when you're starting and running a business that does require expertise. Otherwise, the entire exercise becomes a bit too risky for comfort, especially if you're a non-resident, or until that point, at least, a non-resident investor. So after reading a lot and talking to a whole bunch of people who are way smarter than me, a solution kind of started to present itself. And that solution is franchise businesses. So Japan, like any other country, has a very large variety of franchise business chains, companies that have a proven blueprint and a manual that works well, has been tested in the field, successfully expanded on year after year after year. And because the franchise's brand and reputation and financial welfare are all directly tied into the franchisee's success, they've got a very high interest in the success of the franchisees, who are really the ones making most of their money for them, for franchise headquarters. Now, Japan franchise chains, like anywhere in the world, are always recruiting new franchisees. They're always looking to expand. They're always bringing new people on board. And they're always eager to set up new shops and offices all over the country, collect more membership fees, royalties, and do good business. But as most Japanese companies tend to be, they're extremely foreigner shy. So they have no idea how to work with foreigners, let alone non-resident foreigners. They've got no idea how to communicate, produce, provide, or execute documents in English, receive funds from, remit funds overseas, et cetera, or at least most of them don't, which is exactly the gap that we've been bridging in the real estate sector at NTI this past decade. And so a plan started forming itself in my mischievous little head. I'm going to bridge this gap. So not only in Japan's real estate sector, but also in Japan's franchise business sector. And I'd love to say the rest is history, but that's not nearly the case, or at least not quite yet. It did take a good few months to study the space, make the right kind of business connections, and of course, find the right Japanese business partner for the job. So Chikako, my wife and business partner at NTI, is not really into or looking to expand to other companies, or at least not in this particular niche. And if you've ever done business in Japan, you probably know that having a smart and savvy native Japanese business partner makes things far, far smoother and more efficient when it comes to dealing with Japanese entities. But the universe provides, and I have been fortunate enough to meet Kyoka, who is my new business partner on this venture. And she's absolutely amazing, quick on her feet, super smart, super resourceful, extremely internationally savvy, while at the same time also super proper Japanese. And she also had a dream of her own, which is to start and run a relocation support business, which would help foreigners who are relocating to Japan have a soft landing and hit the ground running. So we've met and then met again and again, and we started talking more and more about our strangely complementary business ideas. Because not everyone who wants to invest in Japan necessarily wants to relocate here, and not everyone who relocates to Japan necessarily wants to invest here, but many of them do. And that's when Nippon Bridge was born. Now, we're only at the start of our journey. We only have a handful of clients at the moment on both tiers of the business, both the investment facilitation and the relocation support sides. But we're generating some very good traction. And now that we've got our first few clients who are opening their first few franchise operations and relocating to Japan, we started to feel comfortable talking about what we do. But not only about what we personally do, we also want to talk about and with anyone else who's doing business in Japan, or at least anyone who's doing business in Japan that's somehow related to creating bridges between Japan and the rest of the world, which is really what we're all about here at Nippon Bridge. So people bringing business from overseas into Japan, people taking business from Japan and helping those businesses expand overseas, people setting up shop within Japan, which has anything at all to do with overseas culture or language or products or services, you name it. And we also want to talk to people who are thinking about any of these things or are interested in any of these topics. So we want to talk to you. We want to provide you with content that would be of value to you. And we generally want to create bridges, because this is what we aim to do here at Nippon Bridge. And this is what the Japan Business Podcast and the Japan Life and Business video channel is going to be all about. So we hope to take you with us on this journey that we've just started. We want to document it with all the excitement, challenges, successes, hopefully not too many, but maybe failures, and mostly the insights that it brings. We want to share it all with the world, and we hopefully want to get to meet some really interesting people and get to know some awesome businesses along the way. So thank you for watching this. I hope you find some value in our content, and we would really love hearing from you. So let us know what you want to hear about, what kind of interviews you want us to have, what kind of case studies or business deal analysis, who you want to see or hear on the show, or if you'd like to be on it yourself. Let us know who you are, what you're all about, and what kind of bridges you're interested in building or seeing built. So thanks for your time. If you made it this far, again, super stoked to be on this journey with you, and I can't wait to see you again very, very soon.